Hey everybody, welcome to That's Peculiar. I'm Nathan.
Andra.
And we have another great episode planned for you today. But first, Andra, what's going on?
Oh, the weather here is cold and chilly. And for anybody who doesn't know, Northern California turns all orange and red and glittery greens in the fall, and it's
Real
beautiful.
fall.
Yeah, it's so
Real
beautiful.
fall.
A lot of people think that California is just like surfer dudes and stuff, but I live in the mountains, and it's so beautiful.
I love when I talk to people and I'm like, I'm from California. They're like, oh, do you know movie stars? I'm like, the mountains of California. And they're like, I'm like, Yosemite. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, but not actually Yosemite.
We've maybe met a couple of stars here and there, but it's just because we're in California. But like, no.
Yeah, but I'm not like next door to Kim. Anyway, Kim K. Kim. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna ask you another thing. What you drinking?
I'm drinking Amador Zen. So it's Amador County Zinfandel.
Is it another Black Sheep?
Yeah, and it's a 2015.
Yeah, it is.
It's gonna be Black Sheep, I think, for a minute. Because no, it's they basically gave us some of their library wines. They're trying to get
That's so cool.
They're trying to move stuff out. So I have you know how people have wine cellars, and you and I have never understood how people have wine cellars because we're like,
poor.
How do you save wine?
And we drink wine. Yeah.
I now have like 2 cases of wine that I am not drinking fast enough. Like,
just
I give
saying,
it as gifts.
If they have any other things in the library that they want to get rid of, they can send them to Arizona, and I will happily take anything they have to offer, free of charge, of course.
Maybe that can be arranged, because you are sending me a microphone. Maybe I'll send you wine.
That is true. I do plan on sending you a microphone. It's a pretty good microphone. I like it.
So I sound better.
You sound fine now.
Who loves Christmas in your household the most, you or Ross?
I'm going to say Ross loves Christmas the most. Because when I
remember going to your house and you never even had a Christmas tree yet.
Wait, which house?
Your whole house.
Why would I have a Christmas tree in there?
I offered you a 4-foot tree and you said, nah.
Where would I put it?
The counter.
Look, what? There's no count. Everybody who's listening,
your little floor.
Anybody who's listening, she says pool house like it was like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath pool house with a kitchen. No. It was a big room that had. Now, when I say big, I mean maybe 10 by 20.
Big.
It wasn't
not big. A big room.
So it's like more of like a bungalow that I was living in my grandparents' house, and there was a tree in the main house. I didn't need a little tree that I couldn't fit in my quote unquote house. Just to throw that out there.
But for also people that didn't know, you didn't decorate it all ever.
I didn't. And
you lived there. You lived there for a decent amount of time.
It was 2 years, something like that.
It was at least 2 years.
It did not feel that long.
No, we went through 2 Christmases together.
Because I moved in that.
I offered you my tree.
I moved in during COVID. And then I left in 2020. I left in 2022.
Ethan and I met working at a Starbucks. For anybody who's curious at that, you were living.
Miss that place.
You were living in there when you and I first started hanging out.
No, I didn't.
You were.
No, I moved in there during COVID.
COVID.
Wait, you started working? No, you did not start working there for COVID.
Moved back March 1st, 2020. No,
Wait,
was
you
that
moved?
12 days before the world shut down? I moved into my apartment just in time to get no toilet paper.
So I literally, okay, so before I left, because I left for training in February, which means that during that time you appeared out of nowhere, unbeknownst to me. Wow. Yeah, so yeah, it was 2 years. I lived there for 2 years,
March 1st, I moved
2020.
home.
Because then in March
And then they
20th, like
shut
March
down our
20,
Starbucks.
yeah. Then shut it down. We stayed open.
Oh, we shut that Starbucks down and moved to the Junction one, and I did, and you didn't.
I stayed at the other one.
They offered COVID. No, it was closed. They
Oh,
offered
they closed it
COVID
during that
pay.
time?
Yeah,
I
they
don't know why I didn't
offered
take
COVID pay
I don't know why I didn't take COVID pay, because it was 3 times the unemployment rate at the time.
because I got even more working in the Junction.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I did.
I made 3 times per what I would have made normally, and I did nothing.
I made more money working at
Did
the
they do?
Junction.
Did they give you COVID pay?
So they paid us, what's the term? There's a
Hazard
term.
pay?
Yeah, they paid us hazard pay.
What was hazard pay?
You got plus $2.
You made more on unemployment,
What you got on unemployment plus $2.
but I didn't have to work.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But
I
just put my foot in the door, so I had barely moved back.
I mean, good for you. I'm glad you did. But I had been working at Starbucks before I went to training, and I told our manager, I said, hey, I'm going to training. I don't know what'll happen. Maybe it's too hard. Maybe I hate it. Maybe I fail out, blah, blah, blah. Please keep me on payroll, but don't schedule me.
Then,
Yes. And then COVID.
Devin.
She was great, but I liked Matt too. Matt's great. Scott. Matt. Where'd Matt come from? No, Scott was awesome. I like Scott. I wonder if he's still there, actually. I'm curious.
Is still there.
What? Stop it.
I thought about working there, but I didn't even get a call back. But I thought about working there when I couldn't put William in daycare.
If I ever go back to that area for whatever reason, I don't think we will. But if I do, I'm going to be like, Scott, I want to work there. You have to hire me. I will harass him. I will win. Anyway.
I didn't harass him.
You should have, because
I went through the standard procedures.
No, you go through the side channels of being like, Scott, I worked for you before.
But now it's the holiday. I don't really want to work there.
I wouldn't either. But you know what? It's kind of it's not a terrible job. It's pretty good. It's fun.
For anybody who wants to work at Starbucks, do it. It's actually a pretty good job.
But I don't know who works there currently, so I can't say for sure that it's amazing. Because it's changed. Like last time I was there.
Such a good crew.
My God, it was amazing. Okay,
I think
anyway.
Josh is gone.
I digress. Yeah. Josh is gone. I digress. Back to we, I, us, Otis.
You can cut all of that out if you want.
I will not. So today we are going to talk about the guillotine.
This episode.
It's my episode. Yeah, the guillotine.
This was his first idea that he really was like, hey, we should talk about this.
Because
it's waiting.
It's kind of fascinating, and
fascinating. It's fascinating.
I mean, considering the reasons why they decided to use the guillotine is interesting. So we're talking about the guillotine, obviously, which is a device that was designed in France in the late 18th century, and it ended up becoming a symbol of the French Revolution. It wasn't designed for the French Revolution. It just became the symbol.
Late 18th century. Wow, that really puts it in perspective.
The late 18th. Yeah, so we're talking about the 1700s.
Right. For anybody who doesn't know, the century is I'm period before.
Which I've always hated that. So the 20th century is the 1900s. The 21st century is the 2000s.
Yeah, it's
which
weird.
I absolutely hate. So yeah, when I say 18th century, we're talking about the 1700s.
1700s. Still, that puts it in perspective because I thought it was further.
Yeah. Think about it like your birthday. You turn 1, but you've already been 1, so you're actually starting your second year. So you're not actually 1, you're 2.
what they're counting this century as, yeah.
Yeah.
Correctly.
Yeah. Which is weird. So like I might have just turned 35, but I'm starting my 36th year. So I'm actually like 36. I've been out of the womb. Anyway, so what is the guillotine? But you obviously know. It was a device designed quickly to execute a person by effectively removing their head from their body. But the guillotine wasn't the first time people that were beheaded as a form of execution. I mean, we always had sword deaths. It was
Sword on stone.
Yeah, sword on stone, things like that.
Isn't that still, wasn't that still prominent in Asian culture? I don't think they ever did the guillotine.
Yeah, it was an honorable death to be beheaded by sword. It was more, yeah, for some reason being beheaded by sword in that time was more honorable than being executed in any other fashion. So beheadings were noted many centuries before, and there actually were other machines designed for beheadings before the guillotine. One of them is called the Scottish Maiden, which was built in the 16th century, which had a similar vertical blade, so something that would drop from above. And then the other one was the Halifax gibbet, which was used in England during the 13th century, and it also had a wooden frame from above with a weighted axe on.
13th.
Yeah, so the 1200s.
Oh God.
Yeah, so
people watching on YouTube probably think I look crazy because you said that, and I was like, eh.
Yeah, so beheadings have happened for a long time, and it seems to me like they were trying to make it easier for a while. But my question is, so the thing is that the earlier designs, although pretty similar, they were cumbersome and actually required manpower, or they just failed to kill efficiently.
And can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Getting your hat. Oh,
it makes me think of Nearly Headless Nick.
Literally, I watched Max, my nephew. I watched Harry Potter today, and he turns away at that part. I mean, to
nearly
be fair,
headless. How can you be nearly headless like this?
He's 4 years old, but he told me and watch this part. Around.
He's only nearly headless.
Yeah, that's what I think about. Maybe that's how we became nearly headless.
I think. Well, he said it was a. He didn't in the movie. He didn't say exactly what it was.
He says it in the book.
A dull blade. It was like a dull blade. It wasn't a.
Yeah, but that could still be one of those.
It could be, to be honest. But yeah, so they had terrible design apparently. And before we actually talk about the design of the guillotine, we're going to talk about some other ways that people would be executed. And the reason why is because we'll get into why the guillotine was chosen. So executions in the 18th century were often done publicly, aiming both to discourage crime and reinforce the authority of those in power. The methods they used were brutal depending on the crime, the social status, and the local customs of the area. And it was also used to deter future crimes if it was done publicly. Like, if you do this will happen to you.
It's like public hangings and things like that. Yeah.
Speaking of hanging, that was one of the other ways that they would murk people. So the hanging was obviously, a short drop with a sudden stop, and it would either break your neck, or what they would also do is they would actually hang you to suffocate you slowly.
Right. For the record, I think most of the time it broke the necks, but
it was mostly a short drop with a sudden stop, and it was one of the
people struggled.
Yeah, because they had strong necks. I don't know. So it was a very prevalent form of execution in Europe for crimes of theft, robbery, and the occasional murder. And it was used because it was simple to create a noose with rope. So it was also a very, very cost-effective way of killing someone.
Are you telling me murders happen more now than then?
No, I'm just saying that was one of the ways that they would take care of murder.
Just said an occasional murder.
No, the occasional murder. No, I think it was just more of like a turn of phrase. We're just like, an occasional murder here and there.
Okay, so the other thing, theft happened more than murder, which still
Well, yeah,
happens today. Okay,
yeah.
keep going.
I'm saying sometimes they would use it for murder, because there was another one that they used for murder more often.
But
Yeah, okay.
listen, I'll zip up.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes it was used for murder, and the occasional murder. So another one that they would like to do was burning at the stake if you're into human barbecue. Hmm. I can I can only imagine what that would smell.
God.
Yeah, and so
Once smelled a roasting pig.
it
I didn't
wasn't
touch
good.
it.
It didn't smell
Oh
good.
no, I didn't. No, it did. That's the problem. But I didn't touch it.
And they say that human flesh is similar to pork, so I'm curious if that's what it would have smelled like. And I hate being curious.
Thing is, they skinned the pig beforehand.
Did you watch them skin it?
Oh no.
Oh, okay.
I think it's mainly the skin and the hair that stinks the most. What I will say is the pig smelled delicious. I never touched it. This was actually a Halloween Day feast that I did not participate in.
So you think it's like the keratin in the hair and all that? That's actually what smells. I don't know. No, thank you. I still don't want to smell it. But so the person was tied to a post surrounded by kindling and set ablaze. And this form of execution was commonly used for heresy. And if you aren't familiar with the definition of heresy, it is a belief.
I am not.
Yeah, you're always like, oh, heresy this, heresy that. But, what is heresy? It's a belief or opinion that contradicts orthodox religious doctrine, but especially Christian doctrine.
This is anything that goes against religion of the nature. So at one point it was Catholic, and then all of a sudden it switched to Protestant, and then all of a sudden it switched back to Catholicism, and then all of a sudden it switched back to Christianity.
Well, yeah, but any religion, depending on your view, you could be considered a heretic and guilty of heresy. The reason why people say it's mostly Christianity is because Christians are so prevalent, and Christians is a very wide umbrella of religions. And
not at that time.
Well, no, because even in the reason why is Joan of Arc. She was burnt at the stake in 1431 for heresy.
But Christianity in the 18th century wasn't super prevalent.
Catholicism? That's a branch of Christianity. Christianity is any religion that believes in Jesus.
Any branch that okay. For some reason I actually thought it was the opposite. So this tells you how much I know. I thought Catholicism went off of Christianity.
No, Catholicism falls under the umbrella of Christianity.
Follows under an umbrella.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Genuinely, I thought Catholics were more strict than Christians.
So
that it was a branch under Catholicism was Christianity, and then Protestants and all of that.
Yeah, so all of those are considered a Christian religion. So Christian is extremely broad, actually, which is another fascinating thing.
Know.
Yeah, so Christian is an umbrella, and so you have Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox. There's all kinds of Adventists, even
Lutheran.
Jewish would be considered a Christian religion.
Who thinks?
Yeah, Jewish would be considered a Christian religion.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And if you're listening and I'm completely incorrect, please let me know. But from my understanding, because of what they believe in, is the beliefs that they have in Christ as the Son of God is it makes it a Christian religion.
You're basically stating any religion that believes in one God is Christianity.
I didn't say one God. I said Jesus is Savior.
You didn't.
I'm curious. So now I'm curious if Muslim, I don't think Muslim, but I would not be considered Christian.
The reason why I said one God.
Well, so because Muslim they're more based on Muhammad and the teachings of Muhammad. And to them, Jesus wasn't their savior. Jesus was just another prophet, but Muhammad was a true prophet. That's my understanding.
Julie's just throwing me off here.
Girl, I'm going to have to look this up now.
No, I know, but like, what about Mormons? What about
that's another Christian religion. I'm pretty sure those are all considered Christian religions.
Not at all saying you're wrong. Ethan has more of a background in this than I ever would.
I am wrong. Okay, now I'm now I have to go. Now I have to read this. So it says no, Judaism is not Christian, though the true religions share some commonalities. Interesting. So Christians believe in the Trinity, with God consisting of the three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Judaism emphasizes the oneness of God and rejects the Christian concept of God in human form. Fascinating.
It's the God in human form that
and
makes
then also, so there's actually a few different things that it says. So it also says that Christians believe Jesus is the Messiah or Son of God, but Jews do not. Jews believe Jesus was a good teacher and rabbi, but not the Messiah. Christians recognize the Hebrew Bible as part of their scripture, but call it the Old Testament. Judaism does not recognize the Christian New Testament.
Yeah, correct. It's the only thing I knew.
Okay, I have more questions.
I didn't know it wasn't considered Christianity. I wasn't sure, but I did question it because,
Wait, because now I'm getting hold on. What is
conflicting information?
Yeah. It's considered. All right. Christianity is the world's largest religion with 2.4 billion followers. It is a monotheistic religion that centers on the life of Jesus Christ, who Christians believe is the Son of God.
Life of Jesus Christ, which Judaism never believes in the life of Christ.
What? Okay, now I have questions. What are the branches of Christianity? Look at.
You give yourself a little background.
What do you mean, a little background?
Anyone listening, why do you know anything about this?
Because I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor for many, many years. You're welcome.
Wanted you to say that. No, it's not. I just want, because I don't have that background. You would understand this more than I would. I didn't grow up in the church.
I am in the church.
Does that mean?
Steeped, like tea. I was steeped in the church. Like I marinated.
Got it. Sorry.
And then I was gay, and that turned everything on its head, which is an actual episode I have planned for the future.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Sweet soul.
Why? It's something that needs to be talked about. Absolutely.
It needs to be talked about more. It's just this intimidating topic to talk about.
It is intimidating, and again, it is my experience. So again, when we do talk about it, it's going to be all me. All right. So it says that there's actually 3 main branches of Christianity, which is Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. But yeah, we're kind of getting into the weeds now. But the more you know. Very fascinating. So going back to the staking, burning at the stake. So we had mentioned that Joan of Arc was burned at the stake for heresy, but it was also used for witchcraft, certain forms of treason. But even though that it was used as a penalty, it wasn't to kill the person that they were burning, it was to purify their soul. But you're setting people on fire.
Which is also weird because the depths of hell is on fire.
That kills people. I don't know. I just think that that's the weirdest part.
Right.
Where are you going?
Sorry, it suddenly got very, very dark.
I noticed that too. I looked over and I was like, why is it dark in there?
Suddenly got pretty dark, so I was just... I don't want people to think I was just sitting here in the dark.
All right, so we also have the classic beheading, which was the condemned being executed by a sword or an axe. It, again, as I said earlier, it's often reserved for those of nobility or a high-ranking individual. The classic beheading was considered to be more honorable and one of the quickest ways to be unalived. Commoners were not afforded this execution because it was more honorable. But there was high-profile cases like Anne Boleyn beheading in 1536, which were major public events drawing huge crowds. But again, most of the times beheadings were often very popular.
And Berlin was married to King Henry VIII, correct?
Yes, Anne Boleyn was one of his wives.
He separated from the church, Catholic Church, in order
She
to get
knows the
divorce
divorce.
recognized, right?
You are very good at your history.
In Berlin, faked a pregnancy. And speculations even say with her brother.
I actually don't know that part.
I think it's speculated that she slept with her brother, and I believe both were beheaded. But I'm not 100% sure about that.
I feel like you're pretty spot on, though.
King Henry VIII didn't like that all of his wives birthed girls, no heirs, and she promised him a boy,
And didn't deliver.
which we now know was based off of the men's chromosomes, not the women, the genetics, not the women's. He was the one birthing girls that he kept trying to marry, trying to birth a son, and blaming the
Interesting.
women. Yeah.
That's because his genetics had to end somewhere.
Apparently, they didn't want him to continue.
No boys in power with your name. Awful. So again, I feel like mostly people who were in this public execution, they hadn't had it. I feel like it was a fun pastime for them to be like, there's an execution today in the market. I've got to go.
That's so weird.
It's weird. And so there is a twisted sense of enjoyment that I feel like they got out of it. But I mean, looking at today's executions, they aren't publicized, but they still do have a viewing sometimes where people can actually witness the execution, which is interesting and kind of macabre. Yeah,
You're saying today?
Yeah,
Wow.
they do have the ability to go witness executions. But I personally don't want to watch somebody die, whether or not it's gruesome like what they did in the 18th century or if it's humane in any way. Like I don't want to watch someone's life pass. I haven't even watched my grandparents die. That's not. So there was another one called the Catherine Wheel, or breaking on the wheel, where the condemned was tied to a large wheel and the executioner took a heavy iron and broke their body parts piece by piece,
God.
prolonging their pain and their suffering. This was one that was mostly used on murderers and highwaymen, and the brutality of their death was to match the seriousness of the crime that they committed.
What is a highwayman?
I had a feeling you would ask. So a highwayman is somebody who spent most of their time robbing and terrorizing people on the roads.
So these are people that have murdered or terrorized people.
And they would interrupt like trades and things like that. So if you're traveling, they could get you. If you were a trade person,
God, it still feels wrong though, You're
what
just
does?
like that wheel. It just
The wheel, there's more about the wheel. They would leave the bodies on display for days, emphasizing the punishment through prolonged suffering. So it was very much like a don't do this. This could be you. And I feel like part of it too is because you're interrupted our trade routes and you've done all this stuff to business, we have to make your punishment worse for people to see, to kind of be like, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The one I'm still wrapping my head around as far as like ways of deading people is the drawing and quartering. There's so many ways that they did before. The drawing, and there's a point to this, I promise you. So there was drawing and quartering where the condemned was first hung, but not to death. So they would really suffocate the crap out of them. And then they were disemboweled and then finally quartered, finally divided into quarters and
quartered,
so into fourths. But they did it while they were breathing.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, because they weren't hung to death. Yeah. Yep. And each step was done in front of an audience.
Thank God.
Yeah. And then there's pressing, which is exactly what it sounds like. Heavy stones or weights were placed on the condemned person's chest until they were crushed. It was
that was very commonly used in Ireland.
It wasn't often done in public in France. But that was more common.
I only knew that about Ireland because when we went to the jails and the places where they held a lot of Irish soldiers, a lot of them were actually killed that way.
Pressing.
By stones.
No, gracias.
That's if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I do. I remember them telling us that in one location, like, several people had been pressed. I was like...
And it makes me think of, like, today's terminology where I say, why are you so pressed?
Weird. I don't like that.
And I think that's what it comes from, is why are you so pressed?
Like, short for time?
No, I use pressed more of, like, why is it bother you so much? Why are you so pressed?
I use pressed like short for time.
Well, yeah, that's another one too. Short for time, like short for life.
I don't want to think about it.
I mean, we're talking...
Suddenly pressed is no longer my vocabulary.
I no longer use pressed because that brings me to a dark place.
Okay.
Drowning, of course, was another one where the victim was actually weighed down and tied to something that would keep them from escaping. And it was usually saved for witchcraft or women convicted of infanticide.
For killing their babies?
Yes.
But maybe they didn't do on purpose?
That's literally what I think most of it was. It was like sudden infant...
Their babies died.
Sudden infant death syndrome. It was the
17th
century. 16, 17, 18. The babies die. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. You're going to murder the mom because of infanticide.
It's the 18th century, right?
Well, we're talking about the guillotine.
The 18th century.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
So, but the funny part for this one is survival was often seen as a sign of innocence.
So baby survived?
No. The mother or the witch, if they survived, it was seen as innocence.
Right.
Yeah.
But a witch would survive.
A witch would survive, which is the crazy thing to me.
So anybody, yeah.
So if you drowned, it was like, I guess she was innocent.
Wait, not surviving?
So when witches were drowned, if they survived, they were a witch. If they didn't and they drowned, they were innocent. Infanticide, it was they are innocent if they live.
The baby lived or the human lived?
The human, if the mom lived.
Okay. I think that's where I got lost in
translation.
Isn't that...
I know, it's kind of confusing.
Wouldn't most moms live?
I would feel like you would, unless learning how to swim was extremely rare.
I see.
But they also tied them to things that would weigh them down.
Or maybe they just didn't tie them to enough, or they were witches.
But they weren't being tried for witchery and infanticide, because I feel like if you were a witch, you would probably use your infant in a live...
You wouldn't lose your infant if you could manage it.
I mean, if you're a witch, I would probably use my firstborn as an offering to Satan, because that's who they worshipped, right?
Oh, that is incorrect.
Girl, you're going to have to do an episode on this, because the movies...
That is incorrect.
But that's not what they believed back in the time.
No, most witches did not believe in Satan. They were more towards paganism, which we've already talked about, which is earth.
Yes.
Earth, herbalism, and
but people were afraid of Satan. And so they tied that to Satanism.
They tied it to them, but that doesn't mean that's what
I'm not saying it was right.
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll do an episode on paganism or witches.
Witches. And crucifixion actually surprisingly was used. I mean, extremely rare. Extremely rare, because it was mostly used in ancient times. And stoning and bludgeoning were also used. Stoning, where you throw heavy stones until a person dies, and
Right.
bludgeoning with a blunt.
That is the worst to me. Like, people
Bludgeoning or stoning?
stoning, people did, well, I guess both, but I've heard about stoning more, where people literally just threw stones at people
Yep. Until they die.
until they died.
Yeah.
Like, that is just the idea of stoning. Like, can you imagine being one of those people throwing a
No.
stone to murder somebody?
No, I could not imagine just a group of hundreds of people just growing. I mean, when they say stone, I think of like, no one's throwing a giant stone that's like this big. So it has to be like something about, I don't know, yay big, the size of a baseball. That's
Or
what I would.
smaller.
Or smaller, and just being pelted by rocks and just for hours probably.
Oh, I think that is what it was. I think those lasted for hours. I don't think they usually killed somebody right away.
It's not a stoning to me, that's a rocking. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean there's there's a reason why I mention all of the other versions of that, is because it was enlightening thoughts about punishment and making it more humane. That brought the idea and design of the guillotine. Isn't that awful?
Guillotine is meant to be humane.
Yes, guillotine is meant to be humane. We're still going to kill you, but it's going to be humane. Yeah. So it was Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine. He was a French physician and deputy of the National Assembly. I don't know why that was a misprint. Of the National Assembly, who proposed the idea of a mechanical method of execution that was more humane in 1789. And France at the time was trying to reform its punitive system to be less brutal. So the idea of a mechanical method would make executions quick, equal, and as painless as possible. And ironically, Dr. Guillotine neither invented the device or wanted it to be named after him.
Oh, how did that happen?
We will get into that shortly.
Yeah, I figured.
So after Guillotine's proposal of a mechanical system of murking people, it was actually Dr. Antony Lewis who worked with a German harpsichord maker.
It's a harpsichord.
A harpsichord is an instrument of like strings, and like it's kind of similar
like
to like
a
a piano,
harp?
like just similar to a piano, but it's a harpsichord. Yeah.
Not a harp.
Not a harp, but because the way the stringing is, like if you think about a piano, it is like it's like a harp laid on its side, hit by hammers. It's the same idea of a harpsichord. Okay, moving on. So he worked with harpsichord maker Tobias Schmidt to produce a prototype. The prototype.
This is a side note.
What?
I really like the name Tobias.
Toby?
No, not no. Toby.
Okay, well,
nobody
that's his
likes
nickname.
The name Toby.
That's his nickname.
I like Tobias.
I don't.
Keep going.
I don't.
Really?
I don't like
Jack
Tobias.
Probably wouldn't either.
Perfect. I'm glad we're on the same page, Jack. So this prototype was called the Louisette or the Louison, and it used a tall frame with a weighted blade sharply angled to cut more efficiently through.
Hold on.
Yes.
Anybody who speaks French, you just call it a Louisette or Louison.
Yeah.
So are you claiming that there are two different versions for women and men? Because that is the feminine and masculine version.
Perhaps they called it was the Louisette when used on a woman and a Louison when used on a man.
Yeah.
I mean, that would kind of be similar to Spanish when you use the baño is actually I don't know.
Baño is bathroom.
Bathroom, but I mean, it doesn't change gender when you use it.
No, but what you just said, Louisette, Louison, that's feminine
boy or girl.
And masculine. So are you saying that they had two different versions for females and males?
No, that's just saying that they called it either or. Yeah, maybe it was about who was talking about it at the time. I don't know. They didn't really clarify that part.
Well, that would make sense that a Louisette would kill a woman. They
Woman,
didn't
and
have
a
to
Louis Vuitton
explain
would
it was
use
a
a man.
woman.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah. So
and
it might be the term was only used loosely for man and women
or
themselves.
who it was killing, but again,
Right. That's what I mean.
these were just the prototypes, so they didn't get used.
Okay.
As far as
Sorry.
my understanding is it was just a prototype and it didn't get used on actual like live patients.
It was just interesting that they used like masculine and feminine terms. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I could see that. So it used a tall frame with a weighted blade, sharply angled to cut more efficiently through the neck. But it wasn't until 1792 that the first guillotine, but I guess at the time it would have been the Louisette or Louison, was built and tested on animals and cadavers. But
Babes.
the animals?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know if they were living or dead at the time.
That's okay. Don't blame me for not looking into that.
Yeah, I don't
We
really...
don't like children or animal deaths here.
No, we do not. But the first designs did only have a straight edge and did have to be angled eventually to allow for the likelihood of a clean single blow.
It's something that a lot of people don't know about the guillotine, right? Is that it was an angled blade for the reason that it hit always one side to the next.
And then slid down, which helped with the cutting action.
You would think being straight and coming down, it would hit that way. But
that's more... That would be a crushing maneuver more than it would end up being a cutting maneuver.
Exactly. I have photos of myself in a guillotine as a child.
I don't like that. No. I mean, yes.
You can post them.
Yes, please send me those.
It's me, my grandpa, and my grandma. We're all in guillotines in Gettysburg.
Stop it.
Right.
And so you had asked earlier, how did Guillotine's name get associated with the device when he did not want to be associated with it, although he was a champion for the youth? Thank you for asking. Dr. Guillotine was actually the most visible figure who was associated with the advocacy for the machine, even though...
Are you saying vicar?
Vicar? What? Figure.
Oh my god!
He was
the vicar is a Catholic. Like, I'm the vicar. You know?
No, as in the National Assembly, he was the most visible public figure associated with the advocacy, but the final designs did come from Dr. Louise and Schmidt. So the reason why is the press coined the guillotine because it was more catchy and memorable than Louisette or Louison. Guillotine rolls off the tongue more.
Right. Than the female or male version of the French terms.
Exactly. And so because that it rolls off the tongue more, it's more catchy and memorable. But there was one more piece. It was during that time in revolutionary France, there was a bunch of irony and dark humor. So of course, if they have the opportunity to name it after the person who is like, we need to create a more humane way of killing people, but I don't want to be associated with it, they're going to name it after you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also why, because they just were like, you know what? We're just going to stick it to the man. Yeah, you have this idea, but you're also awful because you still want to kill people.
We're the opposite.
Go on.
We want to do this in a humane way, so
we're still going to kill you.
We're going to lead you with this forever.
I mean, yeah. But the first execution with the guillotine was officially on April 25th, 1792 in Paris. 1792. Highwayman Nicolas Jacques Pelletier. I hope I said that right.
What'd he do?
He was just a highwayman.
I don't know what a highwayman is.
We talked about this. He's a highwayman. He robbed people on...
Sorry.
Where were you? 10 minutes ago.
Wine.
So he was just a highwayman. He really didn't do anything. I mean, considering at the time it was terrible because it disrupted trade and travel. But other than that, it was nothing crazy. So he wasn't notorious or infamous by any means. His name's only associated with it as the inaugural death of the guillotine.
Man, oh man.
Isn't that weird? Like you really aren't important as a person. You just happen to be the first person killed by this.
Guillotine.
Yeah. So to be honest, though, the people were very disappointed by the guillotine because it was so fast and so effective.
That's what I remember. Yeah, they remember that actually in our history books.
Yeah, they were like, that's it.
It's too quick of a way. I genuinely remember that as a kid.
Yeah, and I honestly think I'm like, so you're the average town person and this was your form of entertainment. They're going to kill someone today. John, what are you doing? Oh my God, I also plan on going to the execution today.
You know how some people watch soap operas or like Love is Blind or, Real Housewives?
That's all fake though.
Yeah, but these people in real life
go to the show.
guillotines.
No, go to Shakespeare. Go to the play. Go to the show. Yeah, so I mean, how bored are you? You're going to watch people die? So I do think it was honestly a free form of entertainment, to be honest. It's just a spectacle.
It was a spectacle.
But I mean, regardless of how people were feeling at the time, the guillotine rapidly became a staple in revolutionary France. It epitomized the revolutionary, oh my Jesus Christ. It epitomized the revolutionary ideals of equality and justice because the efficiency of the guillotine was meant to eliminate the suffering often endured by the condemned, making it, ironically, a humane tool of death.
That is something I have to point towards the French because the options before this were things like stoning.
A wheel.
Right. Quartering. And people don't give the French credit for being humane, I don't think. In my brain, I feel like they're...
But I mean, during that time, it really wasn't about being humane. It was to put that fear of people to behave with authority. And so the enlightening...
Disagree. I think this was made to be more humane.
I mean, it was, but that's because that was where people were starting to head, which is why France as a whole was trying to become more, I guess, how do you say, with the times. So that's why the idea by Dr. Guillotine was accepted, because they did.
I think that's great of France, is my only point. I just mean, like, a lot of other countries would have
just kept doing it the old ways.
Would have kept stoning, would have kept doing anything. Mm-hmm. And this was at least a quick, fast. I'm not saying the guillotine should ever come back. I'm just saying it's very quick. At least people didn't have to watch people suffer. And I understand I'm taking away from people's like entertainment of the week. I think that's cool on France. I think that's very cool on France.
I mean, if you're gonna die, I'd rather it be quick and painless.
Right. Fast, quick.
Regardless of what you did, I think that if you're gonna die, you should die quickly, because I don't want to pay for you to rot in prison.
Interesting.
If you're gonna die, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying if that's what they're gonna do it quickly.
That's okay. I'm not taking any personal notes at all.
I didn't. If I was a judge, I would never condemn anybody to death. But if you're gonna be condemned to death, make it quick.
That's why you're not a judge.
I'm also not a lawyer, so I can't be a judge, which is good because I don't want to deal with that amount of stress.
Right.
I'm a flight attendant, and things are much easier for me that way.
We drank wine.
So the efficiency of the guillotine was meant to eliminate the suffering often endured. But this machine also allowed for execution on a massive scale. It became a critical tool during the Reign of Terror, which was during the year of 1793 to 1794. Thousands of people were put to death. This was also including King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, who were publicly executed via guillotine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let them eat cake. How'd that work out for you?
Man, oh man.
Yeah. So
it almost makes you want to take back the guillotine appraisal of the France. No?
Why?
Well, because more humane, but so efficient. So more people died very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at one point there was lines of people. Excuse me. It was like next. Yeah. So that's kind of yeah. It was very yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that a little bit. And kind of not like get into it, but it's like a final caveat at the end. So it's interesting to note that the guillotine became colloquially known as the national razor. It was viewed as both a symbol of justice and oppression. Artists and writers captured its impact in literature, plays, and even political cartoons depicting the tool of blind justice. After the revolution ended, the guillotine still remained the official method of execution in France, but it was moved away from the public sight and into the prison walls, and it seems only because the use of the machine was normalized and the interest of the crowd dissipated.
Interesting.
People were like, they're like, another execution.
They were like, oh, this is boring. Okay.
Yeah.
So they moved it inside the prison walls.
Yeah, they're like, we'll still do it, but nobody's got to see it. But there was still the occasional public execution in the 19th and 20th centuries, Jesus fucking Christ. The guillotine was used in other countries, but didn't gain as much infamy as it did in France.
Okay.
And the point of me,
it was created in France.
Exactly. And telling you all this is because I found it peculiar that France continued to use the guillotine all the way up until very recently. Do you know when?
No. So I'm here.
That's literally why I'm telling you this, because I was like...
Literally why I'm here.
I'm like, what? Why'd they keep using this machine to kill people? Do you want to get it? I can give you a hint.
Don't even tell me the 20th.
It is the 20th century.
My God.
And it wasn't when we were alive, but it was close to when we were alive.
Up until 1992.
I said we weren't alive.
Sorry. You're born before me.
But we were close to being
born. 1990.
Nope, still too soon.
1991.
Keep going. Okay, I'll just tell you. The final execution using the guillotine was September 10th, 1977.
Way before. Okay.
Yeah, I said it was so close to being born. It was like 12. It was like 12 years before I was born.
No, I was going the other way.
Yeah, no. 1977, when Hamida Diandoubi, convicted of murder, was beheaded in Marseille. But interestingly enough, shortly after 1977, 1981, France actually abolished the death penalty altogether.
The one that was after my mom was born.
That's when they abolished the death penalty. But we're in the United States where they still have the death penalty.
In Texas?
In a lot of states. I mean, it's just like, if they can abolish it.
It's not that many states. It's mainly just Texas.
But like in France, like, girl, like if you can abolish it completely, why can't we? Like Texas in itself is just crazy.
Thank you for admitting that.
Oh, no, I didn't say they weren't crazy. I just, living there would be for work purposes, not my political or my moral views. Maybe they need me.
Arizona really needs you.
Arizona too. Arizona's a swing state. But the legacy of the guillotine will always remain an integral part of France's history as a symbol of both the revolutionary zeal and the extreme measures during the Reign of Terror. Forever immortalized in films, literature, pop culture, it's often a reminder of the brutality but idealism of the French Revolution.
Yeah.
The guillotine.
That's what I've seen, is the guillotine is like...
It's revolution.
Even when it's not a part of that time.
Vive la Revolution.
Yeah. So, have you at all looked into any failed guillotines?
No, I kind of didn't want to know. I just accepted the fact
that... I don't blame you.
I accepted the fact that it was fast and efficient, so I assumed it was good to go.
Right. Okay. I was just curious. It sounds like, what are those other two terms?
Which ones?
The ones that came before the guillotine.
But you're talking about the Scottish Maiden and the Halifax Gibbet?
Yeah. I feel like those were probably more, like, less efficient.
They were less efficient because, according to what I was researching, it actually involved a lot more human power, manpower. as opposed to the guillotine. And I don't know exactly what they changed because I didn't look up the instructions. But I mean, how hard is it to figure out that if you raise a heavy axe with pulley system and let it go?
Well, that might be the exact thing that they didn't research. Because when I went into the guillotines and you put your head in this very scary thing that my grandparents forced me in, I was 7. By the way, anyone wondering, I was 7. It was in Gettysburg, which is in Virginia, right? Gettysburg, Virginia. They had me put my head in, and they took a cutesy photo of me. But what I remember is it's all wooden, and it has cutouts for your wrists,
yes,
and your head, and then a top part comes down for your wrists, your head, and obviously your other wrist. I said wrists. That's plural.
Yeah, so it's like being in the...
Yeah, so it has like a wooden contraption where, like, even if the thing wasn't to come down, if my grandparents decided to leave me during this photo op, I wouldn't have been able to get out. So it was heavy enough, I remember that. And then the blade is up above you, but it is locked. So, like, this is a common... Well, in my experience, it was locked. And this is a common photo op for people in Gettysburg. My grandma, my grandpa, and I did it. But I will say the blade, so it's at a slant, looks absolutely terrifying. And I'm pretty sure it's only locked by a rope. I'm pretty sure, if I remember right.
There wasn't like a block holding it in?
I don't have full photos, but I'm going to send you all of them.
Yeah, please send me.
After this.
Send me them.
They're going to be crappy.
Crappy
photos because they're coming out of an album. I'm just going to take a photo out of a photo album. But from what I literally remember is it's just a string. Like a rope that holds it.
It might not have been a real blade.
No, it was a real blade.
Okay, well, we'll let the pictures decide.
No, it was a real blade. I might be wrong about that being the only thing that held it. What I know, though, is they definitely gave you the illusion that it was just a rope. So what I'm wondering is, did they just have to chop a rope that sliced a person's head off? It caused so much friction. Instead of human power causing it, like, something that would just be like slicer.
Well, I mean,
something you put a blade on top of somebody's neck, you'd have to put human power on that.
I think
this
the
would
other
be
ones,
something above.
From the design, from what my understanding is, it was similar to the guillotine where it was weighted, but I'm just curious, like, how did it require so much manpower? But I don't know. So, I mean,
it didn't have so much height.
There was one that didn't have a slanted one, which I knew that was part of the problem because it was just a flat edge. And it just says it was just a wooden frame with a weighted axe head, which, depending on the size of the axe head and how it was weighted, could potentially be an issue.
But that to me also seems like it could have not been heighted
enough,
which is part of
high enough. Yeah.
So if it even was just a little bit, that would take, like, basically people were just...
Oh yeah, gravity, very important.
Okay, enough of this. That was beautiful.
So your final thoughts on about the guillotine and how they used it until the 1977.
Okay, I cannot believe that.
Right?
I cannot believe that it took them that long to discover that is pretty inhumane.
To stop using it in 1977. I cannot... That to me is what I was like...
I was born then.
I was like...
This is crazy.
Excuse me? You kept killing people with the guillotine until 1970. How long? Yeah, no, that's crazy. That's what I was like, what?
What I will say, though, is as that was being the most humane option at the time, per stoning.
Over-stoning?
The French.
Over-stoning and bludgeoning and the wheel.
Good on the French. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say, like, sad it took them that long to keep using it, but good on the French in the beginning, okay? I'm
so
positive.
glad you got it. Not so happy it took you so long to stop using it.
Yep.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Love it. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening today. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. And if you're
Do whatever.
right, please just don't hate on it. Like, we're learning as we go, okay?
Yeah.
But we'll talk
We're
to you next.
newbies.
We'll talk to you next time on That's Peculiar. Bye.
Thank you for listening to That's Peculiar. Please be sure to like, comment, and follow the show on whatever platform you are on. If you have a peculiar story you would like to hear, please email us at perpetuallypeculiarpod@gmail.com.